everybody, and welcome back to the United Stand. We are at Navy Pier in Chicago, and we are joined with Chris Wheeler. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Beth. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So far, so good on the tour for Manchester United.
Yeah.
2 wins out of 2. We've got the game in Atlanta on Sunday, but the mood seems really positive, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, we kind of get used to this. It's a bit like every year the tour comes around, we talk about cultural resets, smiles on faces, winning games. I remember the tour in 2022, is that right? Eric and us lot went to Bangkok in Australia, beat Liverpool 4-0, unbeaten record on tour, and of course got our pants pulled down by Brighton and Brentford. So you learn to treat these things with a pinch of salt. But yeah, I think you're right. It genuinely feels like something might be starting to build. I'm being cautious, but yeah, it's good so far, certainly.
I mean, there was a lot of reports when Amorim first came into the job that he wanted to take the job in the summer. He didn't want to come halfway through a season. Right. And rumours about how he does something in the pre-season to make the team into a family, to create that bond. And a lot of the players have been speaking about that. Is that the impression that you've been getting? Because I also saw some stuff about how even Manchester United cameras aren't allowed in the training because there's that much tactical insight. Do you feel that transformation is happening?
100%. I think what we're hearing is on the training pitch, he's literally got them walking through their paces. He's like a matrix. So he's walking them through. They are learning off by heart, which we spoke to Dallo in the mix zone the other night. Said it'll get to the stage where they can do it with their eyes closed. Hopefully not, but you know what I mean. And off the pitch, I think he's a lot more laid back than Eric. He still has a code, and you have to go and keep to that. But I think the parameters are a lot wider with Amorim, whereby he trusts the players to be adults. And I think so far the mood in camp seems really positive. Training ground seems really positive. We're seeing that in the games. And dare I say it, maybe that's because of the guys left at home. He had to do what he had to do, but so far it feels genuinely very, very positive indeed, yeah.
Well, he's mentioned, I think actually in the press conference after the game against Bournemouth, that he's happy with this current set of players. Got pressured a little bit to talk about the striker, Rasmus Hojlund, Benjamin Sesko. Have you had any insight on that? Because reports are that Rasmus Hojlund is Leipzig's dream striker target, the player himself coming out in a mix zone, asking if anybody wants to speak to him, and then saying his plan is to stay. It feels like there is a little bit of uncertainty around him. Have the club just not told him yet that he might have to be moved on? Are they actually going to go in for Benjamin Sesko with Newcastle lurking?
Yeah, we'll go back to your first question. I asked him the question after that game about would he be happy going into the season with the squad he has. He said yes. You suspect probably not. I think he would like some other players coming in, but managers say these kind of things. Sesko, of course, is the target for them now. They've been in for him. It was looking positive as we speak. There were some stories coming out of Slovenia tonight that Sesko may be leaning back towards Newcastle. We don't know that for a fact at all, but certainly in conversations I've had in the last hour or so with senior figures at the club, there was certainly not a feeling that this thing was on the verge of going through. But hopefully they can get Sesko. And if they do, then quite clearly they've got to do something with Højlund. I think because of the uncertainty over Sesko, it shows why they don't make their move yet with Højlund. They've got to keep him happy, keep him sweet. Anything can happen. He could be their striker yet going forward into the season, so it makes sense to go and keep him happy, not say too much about him right now until something happens with someone like Sesko or another striker, whoever that might be.
It does feel that way, that get the striker over the line, then we'll deal with Rasmus Hojlund's future.
Sense.
And I feel like the player maybe has a sense of that himself, but he has had a difficult time at Manchester United, been under a lot of pressure, not really had anybody around him, which some people might say that he was dealt a bit of a bad hand, and he maybe does he deserve one more season? That's for Manchester United to decide, and everyone's got a different opinion. But it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah, I go along with that. I think the first season he came in, and as he himself said the other night to us in the mix zone, he wasn't expecting to be the main man, the age of 20, whatever it was, coming in with a huge transfer fee, a lot of expectation. Anthony Martial wasn't fit. He did it all on his own. Second season, even more difficult, playing in a team that was really poor service. But 4 Premier League goals isn't great. And he dropped from 16 goals in total in his first season to 10 last season. So at a club like Man United, you need to be scoring, you need to be producing, and he didn't do that, and that will leave you vulnerable. Can he get a third season? Possibly, but that might be because of other things not happening. So who knows whether they get Sesko or somebody else, I don't know, but it's still quite feasible. They get nobody, and Rasmus Hojlund is their striker this season.
Do you think that if the Sesko deal falls apart for Manchester United, say he did end up going to Newcastle, or for some other reason we don't end up doing that deal, do you think Manchester United could pivot back to Ollie Watkins? And do you have any insight as to why they did choose to go down the Sesko road and kind of keep Watkins on ice a little bit right now?
Yeah, I mean, they began this summer going after Premier League players or players who've proven in the Premier League. Hence Mbeumo, hence Cunha. Of course, therefore, it makes sense to go with someone like Watkins. I think they kind of felt that at 30 years old, £45 million was about the right price for him. I believe it was nearer 60, and they felt that with that kind of figure, it wasn't really worth doing. They moved to Sesko. Things look positive. Are they still positive? I don't know. But as we've seen so many times during the summer, it's a constantly moving picture, a constantly fluid situation whereby you go for target A, that doesn't work out, you can go back to B and C again. So it's not impossible.
Situation, well, we might be on D or E.
Until, of course, we started on Delap, of course. We've been through Ekatike and other kind of targets like that, and it looked like Sesko, it looked like Watkins wasn't coming and maybe would then go to Newcastle. It's changed again in the last hour or so, and that's how it works. You never know for sure. And that's why you keep different deals bubbling. And that's why you don't tell someone like Rasmus Hojlund, we're not going to keep you, because things change very quickly.
Do you think, besides the striker situation, and like you said, it might be Højlund and Xerxes, we do have to prepare ourselves for that. Do you think there will be other incomings for Manchester United? I know a lot of viewers feel like the midfield is a big position that needs somebody to come in, but I struggle to see how Manchester United do that without any midfielders departing. Yeah. And then also the goalkeeper situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two beyond the striker would be a number 6 and a goalkeeper, and that's quite clear. Will they do them? We just don't know. Again, it's what they can do money-wise. If they get a striker, what's left over? Yeah, have to wait and see. I think certainly it would be a huge shock if the remaining 4 kind of bomb squad players were still there. So they'd look to get them out, either ideally sell them, but either way get their wages off the wage bill. So that will give them some more money. Number 6, I don't know what you do there or who comes in there. In terms of the goalkeeper, the feeling at the club is still that Onana starts the season, that he will stay. But the fact is that Man United quoted Monaco £30 million for him, which shows they are open to selling him. Yep. They've definitely gone into Villa for Martinez. They've looked at Donnarumma. So they're clearly looking at options in goal. And again...
maybe similar to the Højlund situation. If we get someone, we can tell you need to go.
Everything knocks on to the next thing. So I know fans want us to go and say they're doing A, B and C. It doesn't always work out that way. There was a constant kind of moving picture in the background of who you can do at what price, who you can move out at what price, and everything knocks on to the next deal. And of course, as someone told me earlier, you don't control the market. There are other clubs in there, there are agents in there, other managers, everything's moving around all the time. And so trying to pin it down at any given moment is really, really difficult.
And then, I mean, looking at the midfield, I do think, Mainoo and Ugarte do really well together in there. I know he is opted to play Bruno and Casemiro together in the last game, and then he's switched them out. Mainoo, I think it was, I don't know how long it was ago now, but I think there was quite a few shockwaves when you did break that story that potentially United could be open to selling him and Alejandro Garnacho. Alejandro Garnacho looks, he is going to go. And now Mainoo, is he going to sign a contract? Is he not? I mean, do you have any insight into what Amorim's plans are for him? Like his feeling? Is he an important player? Because he went from being, the future star to, is he starting next season?
Yeah, it's difficult. And again, you've heard Amorim on tour talk well about Kobe, about Luke Shaw. It's his job to keep everybody happy because he does not know when that window closes who he's going to have left over. It's a tough one midfield because they have got players to play there. Does Bruno play there next season? Because you don't sign 2 number 10s and then keep running them on the bench, for half the time. You would look at probably playing Cunha and Mbeumo and in those number 10 positions. Yeah. So then Bruno has to play. So he then drops into midfield next to Agate, Casemiro, Mainoo. Yeah. It's very difficult to pin down who plays where. Coming back to Kobe, yeah, I mean, it's been a strange time because, like you say, go back to that cup final, beating Man City. He was the shining light going forward, and that story about him and possibly leaving got a massive amount of lower back. I understand why. People just couldn't conceive that ever let him go, and he probably and hopefully will stay. But that contract is still unsigned. He still is not committed to the club for a long term or beyond the next few years, and have to wait and see what happens there, because clearly if he was happy, he'd have signed by now. And if he was a first choice under Amorim, he'd be playing, and that's not the case. So I think there's lots of little things in there that point towards a situation that's not entirely harmonious. I'll have to wait and see what happens next with him. Because again, homegrown player, maximum profit on the PSR sheet. So we're at that stage of the summer where you're never quite sure what comes next and who could leave and who can come in.
Was it true that Spurs and Chelsea held interest in him? I've seen them reports.
Chelsea certainly did. Spurs, I'd be amazed if any top club wasn't interested in him. And again, but Chelsea certainly. Whether that still stands now as it was in January, I don't know. But there's no doubt if someone like Cunha Mbeumo is on the market, clubs will be in for him. It's a case of, can Man United, find a place for him where he's happy, where they're happy, and he can re-sign and he can go and stay on? Hopefully, yes. But a situation that seemed absolutely set in stone a year or so ago, not even a year ago, 8-9 months ago, is not so certain now, definitely.
And then Alejandro Garnacho, it seems like Sancho will eventually go. Anthony, will he, have a loan move to Betis again? But hopefully he will end up departing. Yeah. Alejandro Garnacho is the big one because he brings in the money.
Yeah.
Seems like he's waiting towards the end of the window to hopefully for him sign for Chelsea. That's how it seems, and it felt like Amorim's early comments was maybe a nod to him. If you hoping to get a cheap deal towards the end of the window, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Is that how you see it, and is that your feeling that Manchester United do want to make that deal happen, but maybe Alejandro Garnacho is choosing an option that's more difficult for United financially? Yeah,
as I mentioned before, Ruben now is keeping all the players in the squad happy, apart from, of course, 4, who it's quite clear he's not really having them. They need to go. They will go. I think, it's inconceivable, apart from maybe Malacia, but I think even he will go. I think all of them have to go before the end of the window. And Garnacho can stay in the Premier League, interest from Villa. He prefers Chelsea. And yeah, I mean, he is going to go. I'd have thought for around the kind of £40 million mark. And it'll be a shame.
Isn't it? It went from 70 to 40.
It's crazy, how, and that's the problem when you have these fallouts and you leave players out and training alone, is you do devalue them. You go and tell other clubs, we don't want them. And that's not happening at Man City and Chelsea and Arsenal. That's it's not a great tactic because it devalues that player and really weakens your bargaining position.
Was it that Europa League final that kind of tipped Amorim over the edge? I mean, we heard about the comments of you better pray that you find a club. Was that like the breaking point?
Yeah, I think there've been a lot of kind of like chuntering during the season, social media bits and pieces, liking this, liking that. Some of his family members getting involved. There was a story about his house up for sale. Lots of little bits of smoke that you always feel there's normally a fire there somewhere, and it kind of bubbled in the background for quite a while, and then of course came to a head in Bilbao. He got off the bench, he said what he said, his family weighed in, and I think at that stage Amorim just thought, this is it now, it's time you went, and I think it'll be a good mutual parting of ways. It's the only thing from my point of view is, does he go on to be a real player somewhere else, like a proper player somewhere else? And we do regret, having let him go.
You've got to take them risks, I suppose. And Amorim's so firm on behaviours, mentality, the way you conduct yourself, and he's been full of praise for the 2 new signings, which everyone's really excited about, Cunha and Mbeumo. Hopefully, we see them play after Cunha was out because of fatigue and Mbeumo's not yet made the squad. Hopefully we see them play in Atlanta. But how are these 2 new signings settling in within the group?
sounds like really well. I mean, the group itself, all we're hearing is good stuff. You know, it's positive, it's upbeat. He's got them training really well. Everyone's on board. Obviously saw the comments from Luke Shaw during the week about how it's changed from what he called kind of toxic environment in the past. You know, pretty strong words, you know, for someone like him. He knew what he was saying, and he knew the impact those words would have. And he said them, and I think that's a really indicative comment about where things are at. In terms of the 2 new signings, different kind of people. I think Mbeumo's quite reserved, quite shy. But you look at the pictures of Cunha, he's kind of everywhere. He's, you know...
So vocal. In the small bits of training we've seen, very, very vocal.
He's everywhere. He's jumping on people. He's into conversations, of kind of real busy bee, you know. So, you know, different kinds of characters, but two really good players. I think from the club's point of view, 2 Premier League proven players. They are kind of a plug and play sign, and you can just put them straight in and they will do what they do. Whereas, of course, Sesko, you're never quite sure what you're going to get. It'll
be interesting, won't it, if United don't sign a striker, whether maybe one of them does play up front, essentially.
And Mbeumo definitely can, more than Cunha, I think. And, you know, does that happen? Does Bruno then go back to a number 10 position? But also, it'll be interesting, whether it'll happen or not, what they can bring out of someone like Højlund. You know, to go and give Højlund that chance in a front line that's probably a lot better than he's had before.
I think Højlund would be gutted if he didn't get that opportunity.
Yeah, he's had 2 years.
I've been there for 2 years, now you finally signed these players.
He's had 2 years of kind of swimming against the tide, you know, and then suddenly the kind of players come in that he needs, and he ends up moving on. But I don't know, let's wait and see.
And last not but least, because your insight has been fantastic as per usual, you know, I've heard that you kind of spoke to Amorim earlier in the day. I mean, what is the mood like around him? What are his ambitions for this season? How was he?
He was great. I can't say too much because it's all coming out next week. But
you can give us a little bit.
But, no, I mean, he does, you know, I think he's very focused, and he's always been very focused. I mean, all of us know what he's about. You know, he came in and said, I'm doing it my way, no other way. The storm's coming, the storm came, you know. He said,
definitely came.
It definitely came. Things will improve, hopefully they will. And he just seems very much, he knows what he wants, and there's a frustration there when he can't get it. And I think he feels now, and he spoke obviously after the game here against Bournemouth about it being a different team now. It looks like a different team. I think he's seeing the changes now. He's seeing, you know, the kind of group that he wanted to evolve. And as you mentioned earlier, this is why he'd prefer to come in now rather than during the season, because it made it impossible for him. He knew by doing that what was going to happen next, and it was painful. It was really painful. But he said that was going to happen. It happened, and hopefully, now he's saying the good times are coming. Let's hope they are.
Well, the intensity and the physicality that the players are already performing at in pre-season does look better. Like I've seen near enough every single Premier League side last season outrun us, outwork us, look in better shape. West Ham and Bournemouth, 2 good Premier League sides there, that I thought Manchester United looked fitter than both of them when they played them both. So
I wrote a piece earlier on today, you know, about all this, and they look slicker, sharper, the passing, the tackling, the pressing, everything's on point. And, you know, going back to Fergie, you know, his teams knew they had to earn the right to play. You have to work hard to outwork your opponents, to earn the right to be brilliant, you know, and I don't think many teams since Ferguson have had that work ethic. I think they've had a sense of entitlement. We're Man United. We're full of stars, expensive players, and I think Amorim is trying to reinstill this, that you need to earn the right to play. And you're seeing this in pre-season so far: a real work ethic, energy, pace, you know, and a lot of team spirit too. Because you know I think everything we're hearing about the training ground, we're seeing on the pitch. I think that's really encouraging.
And do you think that's just last thing, Gage? Do you think that's what encouraged Bruno Fernandes to stay? Do you think Amorim sold him that, like, this is going to be different, stay for pre-season and you will see?
I think Mrs. Fernandes probably made him stay.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Fernandes.
Yeah, my reading of that was, you know, the money was so ridiculous. The agents obviously would have liked to have gotten on that.
You should have loved it.
I think Bruno was probably open to that. I think everyone knew that. His comments afterwards, thanking the president of Al Hilal, you know, was very respectful, but showed that he had spoken to them. It had gone that far, And all the sources we had about, what was going on that were pretty accurate also said that it probably would have happened if his wife hadn't have put her foot down and said sorry, but this is not going to happen.
Did you also? Sorry, I just wanted to get the last bit here.
Fine.
Did you also hear that Amorim, what he was saying publicly was we have to convince Bruno. Bruno needs to stay. We want the best players. Do you think internally it was the same as well from him?
Yes. Yeah, I think there was a suggestion out there that Man United would be open to it. We're almost kind of like looking at that money and saying, can we spend it? Obviously, I think as a football club, you have to assess every option. And there was a genuine option, and chance that Bruno Fernandes could have left for £100 million. If that might happen, you're duty bound as a club to look at, well, what if that happened? What would we do? But I don't think there was ever a desire within the club to lose Bruno. It was more a case of, this is real. He is talking to them. This could happen quite quickly. And if it does happen, what's our plan B?
Interesting stuff. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for all your amazing insight. It's been a great tour. We've got one game left.
Look at this, Chicago. Not so bad, huh?
It's absolutely brilliant. Hopefully we can catch up during the season and be speaking positively. And, the fight for European football is on. And I genuinely believe United can do it based off the signs I'm seeing so far, but I don't want to get carried away. So let's see.
The fight for world domination.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you everybody for watching as well. Make sure you smash a like on the video. Get all your comments in. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. And we will see you on the next one.